and I'm just going to dive right in. So I'm going to make a radical statement from the start. And I'm going to say that I suggest that the most radical form of self-love, which you could substitute for self-care, self-growth, self-development, and self-help, should be, I'm going to use that should word, self-knowledge. And what do I mean by self-knowledge? So by self-knowledge, I mean things like, what is the self? What am I caring for or helping? How does it grow? How does it develop? What does it need in order to grow well? What is the goal or the ideal or the meaning or the purpose that we are seeking as a self? Because we all have the sense of selfhood, right? So basically, you know, the existential questions that humans have been asking for millennia: who am I? Why am I here? So why am I suggesting that self-care or self-love take the form of being engaged in activities and programs and mentorships and communities that are focused on growing self-knowledge? Why am I suggesting that? Why am I suggesting that in the context of self-love, as opposed to getting more massages, getting mani-pedis, doing, you know, a yoga teacher training, studying for your coaching degree? All those things have immense value and are all elements of becoming more intimate with oneself. But here's the thing. This is 2019. I know you know that. We are at a moment in history when everything is changing so quickly, and complexity and uncertainty are the order of the day, my friends. This is the reality that we live in. We live in a really amazing time in human history, but very tumultuous, very chaotic, and very uncertain is really the best word. And so, taking into account the context of the world that we live in is the backdrop from which I'm suggesting that now is the time for us to kind of check in again on who are we and why are we here. So let me just mention a few of the important elements of the context within which we're going to explore self-growth or self-help or self-development, self-love. So first of all is globalization. Okay, we are exposed to other religions, other belief systems, other ways of relating, other genders, sexual orientations. We have so much available to us, unprecedented in human history. Never been like this before. It's very exciting and enticing and a bit overwhelming and confusing for some of us, like walking into a grocery store. Then there's capitalism, okay? We live in a capitalistic society, maybe not all of us, depending on where you're from, but in general, capitalism is the part of the globalization on the planet. And forgive me, I'm not a scholar on all this stuff. I'm a layperson like you, but I'm curious about it and I'm tracking it, and I suggest you should be too. So capitalism is built on a fundamental principle that growth is better at all costs. Unlimited growth is possible, and everyone is entitled to grow and get more stuff and more wealth and more. So this has its own set of problems. It doesn't address privilege, and it doesn't address the reality of limits, right? Lots more to say about that, but that's not what this webinar is about. The third thing is monotheism. We live at a point in human history where monotheism is basically the milieu in which we swim. It's even so, it's like unconscious to most of us. And there's certain challenges with that belief system. It's hierarchical, there's power over, tends to be patriarchal. There's often a mediator between you and the Godhead in whatever, lineage you're a part of. And there's this underlying message that you were born broken or in sin, and there's something you need to redeem or amend, right? So that's another part of the context within which we are born and growing and living. Then there's the whole quote unquote Eastern lineages that have found their way into the West, right? And part of the challenge in those lineages is their emphasis on no self and on abdicating the human realm, and, or, you know, we're all one is a common theme that's come from the East that's been misunderstood and misrepresented. So we have these two huge confluences, you know, coming together of tons of Eastern religions and Western religions, right? And then we have science, the agricultural, the industrial, the technological revolutions, advances in neuroscience and physics. Oh my God, you guys, just, I mean, I feel overwhelmed and almost exhausted just naming all of these elements of the times that we live in, let alone meeting them, inhabiting them, you know, managing them, engaging with them. And then we have the population growth and climate change. No matter what your view on it is, we got a lot of people on this planet right now, and we got a lot of problems with our environment, okay? So, hello people. We're talking about self-care, self-love, self-development in the context of a very chaotic, confusing, and uncertain time. The first order of the day, I suggest, needs to be just stopping and going, hey, I'm lost. Hey, I'm overwhelmed. Hey, I'm a little scared. I'm a little depressed. I'm a little confused. As you should be, my friends. This is the thing that drives me crazy is I look around the world and there's so much, especially in our society. I live in California, I live in America, but in the Western world, there's all of this, you know, it's almost, sometimes I feel assaulted by it, this cheerleading, like, okay, don't worry about all those problems that I just mentioned. Don't worry about the climate. Don't worry about population growth. Don't worry about how, you know, monotheism is impacting your psyche or your children's psyche. Don't worry about globalization, and really don't worry about capitalism, because we can grow forever. I mean, all of that, it drives me crazy that people are cheerleading on and saying, don't worry about it, we got it handled, right? Be hopeful, stay in school, do your push-ups, it's all gonna be fine, don't worry about it, got you covered. We even have a president who is basically, that's what he's championing, right? We got this, we're fine, we're in control, right? We're in control. But what if we were all to just recognize for the moment, we are in very uncertain times. We're lost as a species in a way, and that's okay. Not only is that okay, it's understandable and it's addressable, right? Did you ever hear that adage that, you know, the foolish man who knows that he's foolish is no longer foolish but wise? So the person who is lost is no longer lost because they know exactly where they are, which is lost. So there's something really liberating and exciting about, and loving, about actually stopping and saying, okay, I'm lost. So this is my invitation for you personally, and for us collectively, to be willing to say we're lost. What if loss is exactly where we are supposed to be? We're in a huge transition moment in human history, and you, my friends, I'm imagining, are here because you as well are in a huge transition moment, or maybe not even a huge one, but a moment of uncertainty about which direction to go, or, you know, what self-help program to choose, or what job to take, or where to live, or how to orient yourself within the context that I just named. So it's almost like if the house is on fire and all of the self-help industry, or a lot of it, is focused on you being your best self while the house is burning down, I'm not saying don't take from those self-help tools. What I'm saying is understand the context within which you're going to choose from. So what you're going to choose for your self-love And why it matters is because you're recognizing that the house is on fire, and you're going to choose things that are going to help you deal with the house being on fire. And that's going to bring you the joy and the peace and the sense of value and worth and meaning that you're longing for personally. And it will feed and honor and support the collective. So let's take a look at this. Let me just explain to you briefly about how self-mastery can help you orient yourself in your lostness, or in the place where you find yourself right now in your exquisite human life. And I'll be taking questions shortly. So if you have any as they arise, you can put them in the chat. Okay, just make sure that's open. And just take a breath here for a moment, and welcome you all again. Take a drink of water. Calm my nervous system a little bit. I'm excited and nervous. So where we started was saying, okay, let's just create the context. Let's name the context within which we are seeking self-love or self-help or self-growth, personal growth. So let's just name that, and then orient our personal development within that context, which changes the face of the kind of personal work that we're going to choose to do. So what I suggest is for people who come to me and say, how do I find my way in life? First thing I say is, okay, admit you're lost, then you're not lost anymore. And the second thing I say is, what do you do? What do you imagine you would do if you're in the forest and you find yourself lost? Okay, now here's the thing. You had a map to begin with. You had gear, you packed your gear, you were taking your hike, your wilderness hike in the forest. You were doing everything you were supposed to do. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. And you find yourself lost. Okay. The first thing you want to do is just sit down and name that you're lost. Go, okay, I'm lost. You pull out your map and you go, okay, how does my map match my environment? Let me look around. Let me see what's here. Let me see, oh, on the map it says I should be, there should be a forest right here, a grove of oak trees, but wow, I'm looking at a lake. I guess I must not be here. I guess I must be somewhere else. I actually guess I must be by this lake. And is this lake on the map? Oh no, it might not be on your map, but this is where you are. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, my friends, is we want to orient where we are. We want to honor the maps that we have and the gear that we have and everything it took to get us here, because we are ferocious and indomitable and creative and intelligent beings. And now we're going to sit down and go, hey, not sure where I am on the map, but I'm going to orient myself to this place right here, and I'm going to see if I can feed myself here, and see what else is here, and listen and watch the sky and track the sun and do all the things that you hopefully learned in your Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts. Did you know that girls can now join Boy Scouts? It's pretty cool. Okay, so in self-mastery, the way that we do that is we make a general map to help you orient yourself, okay? And the map is divided into 3 essential realms, okay? And it works like this. The first realm is the self. And the self is where you're going to locate your whole, this is the most crowded realm. You're gonna put all of your stuff, right? And your stuff is your ancestry, your history, your psychology, your desires, your longings, your shadow, your critical one, your judge. And in self-mastery, we actually make all those into individual selves, and we put them in the realm of the self. Okay, then we pull out one very special self, and the reason we don't call them parts of you is because self-mastery is integrative, and I'll show you in a moment where we get to a more authentic, a coherent sense of self. But initially, we want to kind of break the whole thing up, right? And instead of, for example, to use the analogy of the forest, instead of saying, oh, there's a grove of oak trees, we're actually going to say there's one oak tree, there's one oak tree, there's one oak tree, and really put all of those aspects of ourselves as individual selves in the self realm. Then we're going to take one very special self and give her or him their own realm, and we're going to call it the witness or the observer. And here's where we get to take all the beautiful teachings from esoteric traditions in the West and many of the exoteric traditions in the East, and we're going to cultivate our capacity to just be aware. So again, the analogy of the forest, you're just going to sit and just observe what's around you. You're not going to make a story about it. You're not going to judge it. You're not going to start berating yourself for being lost. You're not going to start congratulating yourself for figuring out that you're lost. You're just going to be with what is. And there's a whole realm for that in the map of Selfistry, because this is kind of the secret sauce to then being able to create or to hear or to generate your way through this moment of lostness in your lifelong journey. And then the third realm we call the realm of source. And source is the realm where we put all of our big ticket, big questions into that realm. It's kind of the God realm, but we call it source because there's no self there. We don't let any self go there, but we presence it on the map. So the selves over here will have a relationship with it, go visit it, tell stories about it. And at some point, the witness self will allow herself to merge into it. But initially, we have all three of these realms separated. Okay. For those of you who are here for the first time and learning about Selfistry for the first time, please know that your confusion is welcome and appropriate. All you need to know is in Selfistry, there's a map where all of you is welcome. All of you. We don't exile any part of you. We don't try to fix any part of you. We don't shame any part of you. We welcome you all onto the map. You can either live in the self, rest as a witness, or dive into source. But those three realms, I promise you, include all the elements of your human beingness. Okay. Once we identify these three realms, we've oriented ourselves in our lostness a bit, okay? Then we can begin to work in each of these realms with depth and breadth, okay? So here's where, this is my favorite part of Selfistry is, okay, here's where you get to bring in your therapy, your yoga practice, your diet, your love of nature, your creativity, when we generally think of self-help and self-love, all of those tools and practices and methods find their place in one of these realms so that you can deepen in self-knowledge and self-awareness. You can care for yourself and rest your nervous system. You can address trauma in your lineage and in your own body, and you can deal with your relationship with your religion or your belief system. It's all welcome here. And what we do in Selfistry is then we begin to integrate them into a new you, so to speak, a more integrated you. And it's a you that sometimes we call the authentic self. But really, integration is the key word here. We map out our human beingness. We get to know ourselves deeply. And then we start making art out of ourselves. Selfistry is the artistry of the self. So here's why this approach is unique. Number one, there's a lot of self-help products and teachers out there, my friends. Many of you teach them, and many of them are magnificent, right? And there is a whole self-help industry out there that is totally built on taking your money and not helping you at all. This is the world we live in, which is why the context we created at the beginning of this talk is key. We must understand the world that we live in, the forest that we're lost in. There is a self-help industry that thrives on you never really helping yourself, but just being, dependent upon or addicted to the feeling of trying to help yourself. And we see this with other industries like pharmaceuticals and the food industry, right? Where there's so many choices and so many options, and many of them, again, not all of them, but many of them are only interested in keeping you dependent upon their product, promising you that they're going to help, promising they're going to get you to that authenticity or that best self or that perfect body or that calm center or that quiet mind, but don't deliver. And again, because of the context within which we live, the tendency is then to say, you're not trying hard enough. That's why they're not working. You haven't been doing it long enough. The cheerleaders come on. Just stay with it. Just stay with it. Or, try another one. Same stuff, different packaging. So we need to be able to stop and start examining these things, even though, to use the analogy, even though the map says there's a forest of oak trees here and we're sitting in front of a lake, we need to start telling the truth about what's here and what is or is not serving us. And that takes time to unravel it. So the first thing is many of the self-help and self-love products out there aren't really bringing you to that sense of wholeness in your own self, but also purpose in relationship to all of life. Then the second thing is many of them compartmentalize, which is basically what I just said in another way. And many of them that are really helpful are helpful but compartmentalized. So for example, you'll do therapy, but then, you go to meditate and they don't kind of work well together, or you're going to yoga to quiet your mind, you think, but really you just want a tight butt. And that's why you're going to yoga. So should you go to the gym? They're very siloed or compartmentalized and specialized. And again, this can be of high value to you if you use them properly. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing is there are integrative systems out there, but there are few. And the reason, my friends, that they're so few is because this is an emergent technology. We are living at a time in human history where we're having to rewrite our stories, where we're having to regroup and reorient because we're confronted with unprecedented challenges and uncertainties in our personal lives and in life in general. We cannot take that out of the equation. So these kind of integrative models that are available to weave together your psychology and your spirituality and your physicality and your belonging and your relationship to life, they're new. Religions used to do that, my friends. Religion used to hold that place for us, but they no longer do because of the complexity that we're managing. So we need self-development systems that also can manage the complexity of our internal systems and the external world. Now, self-mastery is one of those. So you might be asking, well, who are you to come up with this integrative system, Miss Sarah Marshank? And really, I'm more like her. The answer is, I am me bringing forward the system because I am you. Okay, so in my 20s, I was lost, right? And again, I grew up in the same context. I was born in the same context as you, all of us, whether we're 20 or whether we're 80, right? Okay, now there's slight variations. If you're 20 or 30, you were actually born into even a more confusing soup than I was, right? So self-development and personal growth and self-love wasn't as much of a multi-billion-dollar industry when I was lost, when I realized I was lost. So I didn't have as much to choose from, which has pros and cons to it. But what I did in my 20s was I finally acknowledged that I was lost. Okay. And you can read my story in my book, Being Selfish. It's a memoir, and you can get it through my website or at beingselfish.com if you want to know the details. In my 30s is when I was given the opportunity to sit down and recognize my lostness and sort myself out. I met a guy named Sam. He owned property out in nature. He was living like a monk. He gave me the opportunity to do exactly what I'm inviting you to do. I'm inviting you to do it with me, to stop, to sit down, to be quiet, to orient yourself where you are, what you got, and where you really want to be going, okay? Now, the thing about my time in retreat, those 10 years in retreat, was I very much went to the end of the spectrum of denying my humanity, of witnessing and connecting with Source, which is why those are two realms in selfistry, right? And I really let the realm of the self just sit and simmer. And because I wasn't integrating the totality of who I am, from my most spiritual to my most material and my unique human consciousness, because I wasn't integrating it, I wasn't whole, I wasn't complete. So after 10 years of really focusing on the witness and Source in the language of selfistry, I returned to life and sought to integrate those aspects of my human beingness with my selfhood, with my unique personality and life story. So I kind of spent my 40s doing that. And now I'm in my 50s, and my 50s is about helping others, guiding others, supporting others to take this journey without having to go into retreat for 10 years. So basically, my friends, we're lost. No, I don't want to say it that way. Let me say it this way. Selfistry is born out of my lostness, coming to terms with it, finding my way, and bringing my unique gift forward into the world, which is exactly what you all are doing and will continue to be doing, but just need some reorienting right now. Because that's what happens when we integrate all these aspects of ourselves into the context of the world in which we belong and live in. Our superpowers come through, right? Our gifts come through. Our natural, unique offering into the world comes all by itself. Mine happens to be in the form of selfistry. My character, you could say, my uniqueness, my archetype, my foundation is an educator. It's what I studied in school. It's what I played when I was 6 years old. I didn't play house, I played teacher. And you will find yours. And the coolest thing about this, from my perspective and working with people now for years, so I've been working with this and developing the system, and I'm constantly tweaking it, and you will offer your wisdom into it that might inform how we name these realms and how we weave them together. The thing that I discover over and over is that the message that we're getting, that in order to be whole or happy, we need to look a certain way, or have a certain amount of money, or, have a certain relationship, or have a certain experience, or, fill in the blank. Just look through your Instagram feed or your Facebook feed or out in the world. Is so demoralizing and so untrue and so harmful to our human beingness. Okay. And so the kind of self-love that we're talking about today, the kind that matters, is the kind that says to all of that, yeah, there are people who will be very wealthy and very famous, but they're a small portion of the population, and not all of us can be that, and not all of us are meant to be that. And if we really start looking inside and getting to know ourselves, very few of us even really want that. Right? Very few of us really even want that. When we take the time to know ourselves, what we discover is most of us just want to be ourselves in the most magnificent way, and be engaged in life, and be engaged in the wonder of life, and help people, and play, and build cool shit, and do cool things. I don't know. I watched the Grammys the other night. I don't know that those people have any really better or happier or more fulfilling life than I do. Just saying. And that's one of the things we get to really identify and explore and unpack. So that's what gives me the credibility. But here's the thing. If this resonates with you, whatever resonates with you as you're searching to find something to support you during this time in your life to become, to come home more to yourself, you could say, or to take the next step in your own self-development, do your due diligence, right? So here you are on this webinar. Those of you who are still with me live, thank you. And feel free to throw any questions in the chat box if you have any. Those of you who are listening to the recording, go watch other recordings. Go check out my website. I'm writing a book now. You can read my memoir. There's lots you can do. You can talk to people. You can talk to me. Go on my website, request a personal consultation. Do your due diligence, my friends. Okay? But here's the thing. Unless we take into context the times that we live in, and unless we recognize that we as a species are lost, whatever that word means to you, we're in transition. It's a new millennium, right? It's a new moment. We're contending with a lot. The worst thing we can do, the most unself-loving thing we can do, is deny that or diminish that. And get on the cheerleader wagon and say, we got it under control. Just just keep at it. Just work harder. That's not to say we shouldn't work hard. Please don't take anything I'm saying as absolute. And it's not to say that there aren't ways in which we can have more control over our lives. What it is to say is this. I had a friend tell me a story about a young person who came to him and said, why are all my friends depressed? So here was an elder. And the young person said to this elder, why are all my friends depressed? And what the elder said, and this is the sign of a true elder, a true wise person, what the elder said is, I don't know. But what I do know is what I'm willing to do is come sit next to you. I'm not going to offer you a solution. I'm not going to offer you the answer. And I'm saying this to you as Sarah and Selfistry. I'm not going to offer you a solution. I'm not going to offer you an answer. What I am going to offer you is a way to be together. And what that elder did was he took his chair and he moved next to this young man and he sat next to him and he said to him, together, we're going to look out into the world and I'm going to be with you right here. And we're going to figure this out together. And I'm going to listen. So he wasn't sitting exactly right next to him, but we wasn't in front of him. It wasn't in front of him pretending to know. He was with him. He was with him in the quest and in his lostness and in his journey. What I have to offer you is an invitation to come in, sit down, let me make you a cup of tea, tell me your story, tell me your heartbreak, tell me your fear, tell me your longing. Let's not whitewash over that and pretend it shouldn't be there. Let's not medicate it. Let's not push it aside. Let's meet it. And in the meeting of that, let's also meet your capacity to be still and aware. Let's also meet your capacity to feel into a greater story, to touch into the universal intelligence that is breathing us into existence. Together, let's tap our collective intelligence, our collective wondering, our collective passion for life and beauty, and our human experience. We can do that together. I'm in 1,000% with you in that way. And Selfistry is a system and a construct that can help you orient yourself and help you find your unique recipe for self-development. A self-development that will bring forth your unique and genuine and authentic gifts to offer to humanity at this time when it needs you the most. And it will help you strip away so much of the messaging that we are getting onslaughted with about how we should look or what we should eat or how much money we should have, driving us and driving us and driving us. Self-esteem is an opportunity to stop and to rest, to reorient, and to move forward. So that's my offering for self-love and why it does matter. Self-knowledge is the key to true self-love in these times, because we are lost. We don't understand who we are or why we're here or what happiness really means or what growth really is. We're confused and distorted because of globalization and capitalism and monotheism and extreme asceticism and all of the different, you know, soup that we're swimming in. And it's manageable if we sit down and we slow down enough to actually unpack it. And I'm a great unpacker, and I'm a great map maker, and I actually make a mean cup of tea. So if this resonates with you at all, my friends, here's the opportunities. Next month, I do an 8-day retreat in Mexico for women only. Sometimes we have to really fully step out of our lives in order to get that perspective in the way that I'm talking about it. There's like 3 or 4 spots left for that. And 2 days till Valentine's Day, there's a $200 off of the registration fee between now and Valentine's Day if you put Valentine in when you pay at the end. Now, for those of you who getting out of your life for a retreat isn't part of what you can do with your lifestyle right now, in April, I'm starting another course, an online course. I'm in the middle of teaching one right now. It's a 7-week course, and it's online through Zoom. So we meet weekly, and I present the system of self-esteem, and I present it in a way like this was a condensed version, okay? So if, you know, it's a little overwhelming to try and explain this very simple but quite elegant and complex system of self-esteem. So you can take a 7-week journey with me and I can get to know you. We learn each other's stories. It's a small group, so you'll get some personalized attention in that as well. And the early bird pricing is still there for that on my website, selfesteem.com. And then I also do private mentoring. I don't take on very many private clients, but I do. And the reason I don't take on very many is because it takes all of me. All of this takes all of me. So I actually practice what I teach, and I take care of myself so that I can be of service in a way that really has impact. So self-esteem is a sound system. It works for a lot of people. It may not be for you, but if it is, or if you're more curious about it, then I invite you to come in a little closer. Come in a little closer. Have a cup of tea with me. Tell me your story. Tell me your fears. Tell me your confusion. And let's wonder together about how we as an individual, but especially as a collective, as humanity, can get out of this mess that we're in and make beautiful art out of it, because I know we can. I know we can. So any questions? I know that's a lot. Can ask them privately, or let's see. I'm just gonna scan my notes here for a second to see if there's anything else. Okay, great. So Adele is saying that it really nailed it for her. Yeah. So the system of self-esteem came through. She's telling me, she is a student of mine, and she is telling me it was kind of clear what I just said. So that feels really good. So I think I'm going to end here. My commitment was to 45 minutes. So I'd like to just end here and end with an invitation to love yourself. An invitation to love yourself so much and so well, and know that you matter and what you're bringing forward into the world is important. by being willing to take the time to know yourself more deeply, to know yourself in a way that will serve you to grow yourself, to meet the complexity of these times and be of service to the world in change, the world in flux. So I look forward to meeting you again in some form. Again, selfistry.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and spending time with you. Okay, thanks for coming today, everyone. Big blessings on the rest of your night. Heva, sleep well. And I'll see you again soon. Lots of love.